Why?
Is a wake-up call. Look, the phrases free-to-play and live service, whether by themselves or in combination with one another, don't fill players with a lot of confidence, and they shouldn't, because they become synonymous with games and studios that are under-delivering on a product and service while asking for the absolute most from their audience. More time, more engagement, more money, extracting as much as they possibly can while putting in the least amount of effort.
I absolutely agree. I feel like gacha games are another prime example of this due to the fact that these games, every 6 weeks, they net gain millions of dollars, and they give the players about a day and a half of content every 6 weeks. It's a joke. The fact that these content creators still need to make shit like zero cycle clears or don't have content for their channel, we players should be drowning in optional content with how much funding we give these developers. And we praise them for doing the bare minimum. Wow, you made one new character and you made some static NPCs talk for 2 hours? Oh my God, here's $80 million more this month. Please don't work too hard. It's a joke, and we all know it's a joke. And you know what's crazy? We'll all still keep playing it.
Warframe is the most well-known yet underdiscussed and underappreciated games in all of gaming. It's often referred to as the internet's best-kept secret, and I'm tired of it being a secret. For all intents and purposes, Warframe is the blueprint by which many of these free-to-play games and live service games should be following, but they're not.
I agree. Warframe has some very good systems set in place. Now, that being said, I did play Warframe for about maybe 80 hours. I can never really figure out if what I'm doing is the right thing to do. And I've never really had that experience before in a game. I really don't know what the end game is. I always get told that fashion frame is end game. And I kind of beat all the content and it was really fucking easy. And then it was kind of just like, well, now you're going to grind and you're going to grind a lot. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. So I'll stop playing. But that's just me.
It's a game that is tirelessly supported by its developer and by its community.
Its community is very tight and very hardcore.
In a way that I don't even think any other game can even replicate. And once you guys hear about some of this stuff, it's going to blow your mind. Free-to-play and live service is supposed to be a way for developers to be able to deliver a smaller product and grow it over time.
Sure.
Be able to deliver a valuable service, a valuable product, and grow it while the community supports it. And that's the kind of game that Warframe is. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And luckily, today's sponsor is actually the game that inspired Warframe. I've played World of Tanks multiple times over the years. With
yeah, I don't know about that one.
World of Tanks is one of the longest running free-to-play games on the market and has been actively supported for over a decade now.
Good one.
Over players of Warframe, your dashing, and 7 days of premium access. Plus, you'll get to try out 3 other Tier 6 tanks for 10 battles each. Just use the link in the description below to get started. So what is Warframe? It's a looter shooter, live service MMO with a third-person perspective. You play as a Warframe, you're dashing through levels, taking down enemies, farming up materials, currency, and other items so that you can continue to build more weapons and more Warframes to use. Warframes vary in their looks and abilities. Some of them play like a ninja, others like a battering ram or even a wizard. There's even a frame that lets you create your own music so that you can buff other players. You have pets, ships, clans, PvP, personal housing, boss fights, a roguelike, a fighting game, open worlds, and more. It has consistently stayed in the top 20 of the most played games on Steam for over a decade now, and in doing that, there is something inherently special here. If we look at the game's player base on Steam, while it's not burning the world down with insane peaks, it's maintained its player base consistently since 2013.
That's a hell of a lot more players than I thought this game had.
So how has Warframe maintained that success? Why is nobody talking about it? And unlike many other live service games, why aren't we hearing people complaining about it or how it mistreats its players?
Fair.
Well, to answer that, we need to understand the game's history and that of its creators. Now, you may recognize the name Digital Extremes, renowned for their early work on Unreal Tournament.
Fun fact, one of my exes used to work for the company. Pretty cool.
In partnership with Epic Games, they played a pivotal role in shaping the landscape of multiplayer first-person shooters. They were among the first to popularize key features like online multiplayer, power weapons, team deathmatch, and capture the flag, laying the ground for many of the multiplayer games that we play today. After parting ways with Epic Games, as Epic went on to make Gears of War with Xbox Studios, they decided to pitch their own game idea, and they tried to do it for over a decade. That game was called Dark Sector. They struggled to find a publisher for this dark sci-fi MMO concept that they had, and ultimately Digital Extremes was forced into doing work for hire just to be able to keep the company afloat. The decision to take on work-for-hire projects while necessary for financial stability came with its own difficulties. The studio faced a cycle of hiring employees for specific projects and then laying them off once that project concluded. This practice is commonplace for work-for-hire studios. However, it disrupted the lives of their employees and their families, a situation that the studio founder has regretted since then. He believed that publishers often lacked a clear vision, and that Digital Extremes would have been better off just focusing on smaller, self-controlled projects, as seen with independent studios that tend to produce higher quality work when they're given full creative control. Despite the continuous efforts to pitch Dark Sector to publishers, the studio continued to face rejection, primarily due to a lack of interest when it came to sci-fi games on the side of publishers, a sentiment that somehow never even changed even with the success of Halo. In a desperate move, Digital Extremes caved to a publisher's demands, shifting Dark Sector from a sci-fi MMO to a game that emulated the success of Resident Evil 4 at the time. This change involved transforming the protagonist from a space ninja to a CIA operative named Hayden Tenno, which strayed very far from the original concept.
Space Ninja
the new version of Dark Sector struggled to be able to find an audience. However, it eventually did and gained respectable reviews as well.
That shit looks awesome.
After the release of Dark Sector, the industry started to trend away from AA releases to AAA games, and this made for more issues at Digital Extremes. The studio, which had previously worked on BioShock's multiplayer and The Darkness 2, found itself struggling to find any contracts as they began to dry up, and publishers wanted to start making games
bro,
in-house.
You just ran into that shit.
Observing the success of free-to-play games like World of Tanks in 2010.
Okay, shut the fuck. There's no way. Shut the fuck up.
Digital Extremes saw an opportunity in an emerging market. They didn't see free-to-play as a way to be able to milk players. They recognized and saw the potential to be able to create something smaller and grow the game over time rather than trying to pursue a traditional release. Facing imminent financial collapse with only 12 months of funds remaining, Digital Extremes decided to pursue a long-held vision for what used to be Dark Sector, and then was now codenamed Lotus. Within 2 months, they developed a working demo featuring spaceship raids and procedurally generated loot and layouts with an emphasis on co-op and PvE gameplay, recognizing there was a gap in the market. They approached free-to-play publishers asking for support, but they were getting rejected yet again. Undeterred, Digital Extremes decided to self-fund the project with only 9 months of funds remaining, wanting to give it their all rather than simply just walk away. The development of the alpha version of the game saw significant involvement from Rebecca Ford, an intern who led the creation of their community team. This team was crucial in gathering and responding to player feedback, a strategy that helped shape the game's development and ultimately its success. Embracing the success of Kickstarter campaigns that were going on at the time, Digital Extremes introduced supporter packs to raise additional...
You know how many Kickstarter campaigns I have signed up and supported, and then nothing fucking came of them? Where the fuck is Puff Pals? I gave that goddamn company like $2,000 to buy their goddamn stuffed animals. When the fuck is that game releasing? I swear to God, all these Kickstarters wait too goddamn early. Like I dropped like $200 to play a game that ain't gonna come out for 5 fucking years, and then they're gonna say, oh, sorry, we gave up. Bro, fuck Kickstarters, man. That shit's a fucking scam.
Additional funds. This approach, while initially slow, proved ultimately effective and demonstrated that there was an audience for their game. Thus, Warframe was born. A game over a decade in the making, who had faith in itself, scorned by an industry nobody else wanted to make it except for them. It released into beta on Steam in 2013 to over 20,000 players and has only continued to grow since. Over the years, I've come to realize that the vast majority of the studios that we grew up loving, the games that we grew up loving, the biggest studios and publishers that are out there all came from very similar humble beginnings.
Absolutely.
But the vast majority of them forgot about it. And the ones that don't end up being the ones that are the most loved and appreciated. Look at Larian Studios. Their story is almost identical to Digital Extremes.
Did I remember how much I used to love Rareware? I remember that shit. Rareware. Coming out with some of the best games ever made for any console. Fucking Banjo-Kazooie, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Viva Pinata. Then that shit gets bought by Microsoft. They release Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts when everybody was waiting for Banjo 3 for years. Nearly a decade. And they shit on the very game that got the franchise popular to begin with. Yeah, even Perfect Dark. When Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts in the first 30 minutes said, no one wants a platformer in the 2000s, I about shit myself. made a game from a platformer to a game about Lego cars. Cars! Shout outs to JonTron before he got racist, allegedly. I don't know. Is he a Nazi? I don't know. Maybe. The internet said it, so it's about a 50-50 chance. Who really knows? But man, that shit was a joke.
They started off making their own games to limited success. They did work for hire for a while just to be able to keep the doors open. When that industry started to dry up and move away, they went to go make their own game, and Divinity Original Sin.
Banger.
They danced with bankruptcy, almost losing.
Divinity Original Sin. A game that I've played over 800 hours of. Never beaten. Bro, I don't know what it is. Restarting that game over and over and over again feels so right.
The entire studio, but they found an audience that wanted to support it, and now look at them. Baldur's Gate 3 is heralded as one of the greatest games of all time. They blew up, as they deserve to do so.
Baldur's Gate, another game I have 400 hours in. I've never beaten Chapter 1. Because it's too fun to restart. Anytime I think I make a slight mistake, I'm like, well, the gnome flew off the windmill, so I need to go restart because I gotta know what happens with the gnome. Oh, fuck, I talked to the witch and she took my eyeball. I gotta restart because I can't have a slight accuracy deficiency. I just can't. I gotta restart. Oh, fuck, I didn't get to fuck the bear. Now I gotta restart. Oh, shit, I fucked the bear. Now I gotta restart.
When I look around the industry right now, I see a lot of studios that are making games not because they want to make them, but because they're profit motivated. Purely profit motivated.
True.
They no longer look at players as anything other than tools for making money, and that's it.
Chad, why would a company work on making content for a game when all of the money comes from this character has huge boobs? There's just no reason. That's why Gacha games, guys, I'll be real. They're for gooners only. They're for gooners and gooners only. Always will be, always have been.
Rather than looking at them for what they actually are, which is a means to be able to deliver a higher quality product, use their feedback and their information to be able to earn their money, and then by extension, make your game even that more popular. Because when players are happy, they tend to talk about it a heck of a lot more. And I've also noticed that, games are a form of art. And without soul, there is no art. And in the case of games, I think a lot of players are starting to wake up and realize they can see it in your trailers, they can see it in your gameplay, they can see it when the soul isn't there.
Why the fuck do you think I'm sitting here reacting to videos and playing a fucking video game? I can maybe count on one hand how many soulful games have been released in 2024. Black Myth Wukong.
And when they know it's there and they see it's there, they're into that game. But when they don't see it, they don't want to have anything to do with it. And I think that's why we've seen a lot of games over the last few years fail. Digital Extremes started out with great intentions, to be honest with you. But that doesn't mean that they didn't make the same mistakes that many other free-to-play and live service games make time and time again, and that's with its monetization. But the difference is they learn from their mistakes.
True.
I don't think anybody can disagree with this. Recently, over the last few years, both live service and free-to-play games have permeated through every space in the entire gaming industry. Every single company wants their Fortnite, Counter-Strike, Genshin Impact, whatever it might be, and of course they would, because they draw in revenues that would make you wonder why anybody would ever want to make another full-priced game again. But with the introduction of free-to-play live service games, we've seen year over year, month over month, players are losing ground, losing choice, and losing their money. Free-to-play has become synonymous with cutting content and player achievement and putting a price tag on it. While the gameplay itself is free, the model has incentivized developers to paywall everything in the game or put in absurd time restrictions and hurdles for players to be able to overcome just so they can try to earn anything with their own time or their own skill.
My problem is I have this whole moral dilemma where it's like, yeah, can we really blame the devs? Can we really blame the devs for enabling this? Or can we blame the devs for being enabled by the community? Because it's like the community will pay for this. If I needed money and someone were to give me $200 for a cigarette, you're goddamn right I would give them a nicotine addiction. Abso-fucking-lutely. If they're going to be that stupid and pay for it, abso-fucking-lutely. Like, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that my morals are better than that, but like, If I have the opportunity to gain money easier or harder, I'm going to choose easier every fucking time. Every fucking time. I don't give a fuck how my phone's made. I don't give a fuck how my porn's made. I don't give a fuck how my car's made. I want the cheapest, best shit I can possibly get. And that's just the truth. And to be honest, that's how it should be. You think I don't jerk off to AI porn? You're out of your mind. Jane Doe gets fucked, all holes, generate. I just saved myself $60 from having to commission that shit. One click of a button, 10 seconds later, bada bing, bada boom, it's there. Who cares?
Studios today are incentivized to actively harm the player experience and lower the quality of the overall product, all in the name of higher profits. Digital Extremes was incredibly nervous about getting into free-to-play because they were afraid that they were going to do it wrong, and in fact, they did. At first, they started selling power, and it wasn't the reputation that they wanted to create for themselves. At the creation of Warframe, you could double the capacity of your mod or skill tree slots in your Warframes. However, there was no way to be able to earn this in-game, and the only way that you could get it was by paying for it with real money. Early on, before the game's beta release, Digital Extremes saw the players' feedback regarding this issue and removed it and any other perceived pay-for-power microtransactions, vowing for fair monetization to be a core tenet of the studio moving forward. In that move, and other changes that they made, due to their deep involvement in the early foundations of their game's community, they fostered a positive community spirit and gained even more support. In an interview 6 years ago with Danny O'Dwyer of No Clip Documentaries, they mentioned how difficult it was for them to be able to find any marketing or visibility because at the time, nobody wanted to touch free-to-play games. However, the positive community that they had already started to culture, the fact that they had been listening to their community, ended up catching the attention of the late great commentator Total Biscuit, who came to cover the game and catapult its popularity into the mainstream.
Rest in peace.
I think that this is one of the most...
Used to watch that dude every single morning. That guy was a goddamn legend, bro. I still remember his stream intro. I remember his voice, man. Yep, immortalized by the LOL emote, man. I remember that. Dude was and still is the man. Rest in peace. Left way too soon.
Valuable lessons for Digital Extremes or any company to learn, and it's that good things happen to good developers, especially those who treat their players as well as Digital Extremes and listens to their feedback. Game developers large and small.
As a guy who's heard the ins and outs of Digital Extremes by working closely by association with the company and all the things I've heard them do, I'm not going to lie, their employees have to work a lot. I'm not going to lie. They work a lot. They do a lot of overtime, and a lot of it I've heard, can't confirm any of this. I heard a lot of it is also free. I mean, they really love their job. They really love their work. And yeah, they definitely listen to their community quite often. They definitely pump hours into making this game as good as they possibly can, even down to the UI. It was insane.
All need to recognize that they are providing a product and service to us, not the other way around. The expectation is on them to create a fun, fair, entertaining, and valuable experience in exchange for our money. And
I think that's a very good thing to bring up because there's too many games these days where we, the players, are having to make content to make the game fun. That's a live service game. Now, it's different for games like Super Mario 64 and Dark Souls, right? Because those games aren't live service. You play them, you beat them, it's done. If you want to play more, make up the content on your own. However, when we're steadily supplying more and more income to a game that's live service, we should expect a steady stream of content coming for that money that we are giving them. And that's the fucking truth. And it's the consumer's issue for not pushing towards devs that we want more shit to do because we are giving you more money. Guys, if you were at a restaurant, okay, and you finish eating the fucking food, and then the waiter was like, all right, we're going to need $10 every hour you sit here, otherwise get the fuck out. You would probably leave fucking immediately because you had the experience and you would fucking leave, not just sit there and be like, wow, there's nothing happening. You would eat your food, you would get out, and then the restaurant wouldn't charge you anymore. Or you'd come back during dinner when there is more food. But the idea of we're paying consistent money and not getting consistent product doesn't exist pretty much anywhere else.
I see game developers posting on Reddit talking about how they hate gamers because of YouTube live stream comments, or how a lead Starfield developer makes a Twitter thread saying, Funny how disconnected some players are from the realities of game development, and yet they speak with complete authority. I mean, I can guess what it takes to make a Hostess Twinkie, but I don't work in the factory, so what the hell do I know, really? Not a lot.
What a retarded ass take, bro. Jesus, just shut the fuck up.
And neither of these opinions that these people have are in the minority of opinions. With what authority do players speak? With their money. They are your paying customers. Paying customers. While players may not know exactly how to voice their concerns, and oftentimes will do it in the wrong way, you still should be listening to them because they are telling you that something is wrong with your game. And at the end of the day, all they want is a better product, which only serves to make you more money in the end. We've seen developers stray from the side of players. However, how many developers have you seen remove a microtransaction from their game because players were using it too much? When Warframe introduced colors for their pet skins, they didn't realize they had inadvertently created a gambling mechanic where players were trying to search for the rarest skin colors and the combinations that they wanted.
Rarest skin color in a Hoyoverse game, black.
DE saw that a player had rolled his pet's color 200 times and their stomach sank. Within a day and a half, they had removed the mechanic from the game and reworked it, without the need for player feedback. The spirit of that can be found throughout the entire game. As of a recent update, now everything in the game, just about everything in the game, is earnable in-game with very few outliers.
Good.
Warframe uses Platinum.
I'm underneath the opinion that everything in the game should be grindable. If you can buy it for $150, you can grind for it over the course of several weeks. I think paying should speed things up. I don't think things should be gated behind currency. It's very frustrating.
As it's in-game premium currency, and it's fully tradable. Players can go out, farm valuable resources, mods, weapons, and Warframe blueprints, and then trade with other players without ever even spending a dime. You would think that this is trapped behind some type of end-game progression or something, right? No, you can start doing this within the first 15 to 20 hours of playing the game. I was already trading items with other players and stockpiling currency from the minute that I had started. While players still have the option to buy anything that they want from the game's in-game shop, all of those things, or at least the vast majority of them outside of cosmetics and color palettes, can be earned in-game. So, Mr. YouTuber, that means that Warframe must have the most difficult and high-end equipment behind paywalls or something, right? It has to be insanely difficult to get. No. The pinnacle Warframes and weapons are called primes. You can earn these by cracking relics, and you get relics constantly while you're playing the game. When you go to do these missions to crack the relics, you're playing with 4 players, and all 4 of you can choose to use the exact same relic, which would then increase your chances of being able to get what you wanted, because everybody can choose from everyone else's rewards. Meaning that even if you're in a party that isn't coordinated and you're all running different relics, if you don't get what you want out of yours, you can just get a copy of somebody else's thing if it's more valuable. You can choose to get whatever you want. Every weapon, every frame, companion, and otherwise is at your fingertips. You can earn your way through Warframe without ever even spending a dime, and many players have. There is no time wasting in Warframe. And what's even more crazier is that adding to this absurdity, they show players how not to spend money within their premium shop. If you go to their premium shop and look at any of the items available in it, next to every item, it tells you how to go earn that item in-game rather than spending money. They teach players how not to spend money in their shop.
That is fucking awesome.
But that doesn't mean that players don't support the game. In fact, they do quite a lot, because by making things so accessible, giving massive discounts on their currency and things like that, being able to just get all the things that you want in the game by playing it, players just want to spend money on the game because they want to support it, because they love the game so much, not because they feel like they need to.
This is why I don't really mind, and this might be a bad take to a lot of people. This is why I really don't mind where prepackaged complete games when they're released. I don't mind when they give like deluxe editions where it's like, get the game, pre-order the game, and we'll give you like this big ass fucking statue with it. Or we'll give you like this cool like coin with it. I'm like, all right, that's great. A way to pay a little bit extra for a game because I was really happy with how it turned out, how it was developed, and something to kind of remember how good the game was. I don't mind that at all, personally.
Imagine that. Imagine a world in which the players are not spending money on a game because they need to overcome some fabricated barrier that's put in place, and if they spend money, they're going to be able to get...
If it's pre-order, how do you know how it turned out when you bought it? Or, well, it's like, you know, that's usually pre-order bonuses. Buy the deluxe, you get this image, but it's also like, or you get this figure, but it's also like, if you buy the deluxe edition of this, it's still the same game, but you get like these nice little trinkets and baubles, you know, like something physical. I really like the deluxe editions. Maybe not pre-order so much, because pre-orders is another slippery slope where developers convince you that's going to be a very good game. It can often be predatory. So maybe not pre-order bonuses, but just standard release deluxe editions. Yeah. Collector's edition.
Get through it fast or get through it at all. No, instead they're spending money because they actually want to support the game. They just are enjoying themselves and want to spend the money. Now, mind you, some of this is definitely driven by convenience, but the vast majority of players just love the game and want to support it. And that's not to say that there aren't areas worth criticizing. I'm still not a fan of the fact of them having 12 to 72 hour crafting timers on weapons and warframes. That's just
fucking nuts.
It's just too much. I don't know what else to say about it. It's just too much.
It is.
And also there's a big limitation on the amount of weapon and warframe slots, inventory slots that are available early on for play.
That's the same issue I had with Warframe. It was nice, everything was grindable, but like 72 hours just to let something cook, man, it feels like torture. It really does feel like torture. Then you can pay for platinum to speed it up, which I suppose is fine if you want to do that. But yeah, it is like, yeah, it's free to play, but it's kind of rough, not gonna lie.
Players, that's something that in general just needs to get fixed.
Was that the World of Warcraft method?
The thing is that the longer you play the game, the less those things become an issue because you have so many other things that you're working on, leveling up, playing as, farming for, while all these other things are building in the background that you really don't even notice it all that much. And while there's room for improvement, this is largely the most ethical live service game I've ever seen monetized. And I don't think any other game wants to try to compete on those terms. They definitely don't want to compete on their content. Warframe's first turning point came when the game released on Steam.
I think the biggest thing that was shocking for me as a dedicated Kuma was how much people jerked off to these Warframes. I never got that shit. I mean, I get they have big asses, but the sex Kuma community for Warframe is enormous.
Which marked a critical success and provided the studio with the necessary resources to be able to continue to support and develop the game. Unlike competitive shooters that can maintain an audience with minimal updates, Warframe faced the challenge of sustaining interest in a PvE-centric game, which is far more difficult. To overcome this, Digital Extremes heavily leaned on the experienced development team who had weathered the storm through the toughest times and possessed the deep institutional knowledge that was necessary to make the game successful. If it wasn't for the fact that they held on to their employees when the game and the studio was facing its closure, they likely would have never been able to make the game the success that it is today. In the years following the game's release on Steam, Warframe saw a rapid expansion in content. The studio introduced clans, player hubs, a plethora of new weapons and warframes, and diverse gameplay elements like open-world areas,
and these things are the same things that we should be asking for in other video games. It's kind of insane how we've gotten to a point where the communities for video games have become so brainwashed into, oh, poor developers, where it's like, how many gacha games do you think could heavily benefit from like communities, clans, raids, guild battles? And yet what we get is, here's a new character and an episode of static dialogue. We'll see you in 6 weeks. And then you hear the collective dick sucking of everybody on the Hoyoverse communities. It's a fucking joke. It really is a fucking joke. It's a shame. Gaming has been a lot worse lately. There's obviously been some outliers, but I would say the temperature and the reasonability of communicating with gamers on what is or what isn't okay to ask developers, people just become such pussies. It's insane. It's like when you see a abusive girlfriend with a over-tolerant boyfriend where he's attempting to be good to her by giving into her unreasonable demands. And he thinks he's being good because he's letting her manipulate him because he doesn't get it. And then you as a friend say, hey bro, don't let her talk to you that way. And then he says, she can't help it. That's just how she is. And if you don't get it, you're not a good friend. Leave me alone. It's pathetic, right? And there's a lot of people that are like that. And it's kind of how it feels with asking for reasonable things of video game developers. Like, I don't know, video game developers. Develop your game. What do you mean? It's a joke. Yeah, it's a very yes, honey moment. Absolutely.
Vehicles and space combat. But the most significant shift in the game's identity came with the release of The Second Dream, a cinematic quest that redefined Warframe as a game. This quest introduced fully voice-acted, high-quality cinematic experiences with intricate writing and storytelling that elevated the game from a compelling free-to-play title to a truly exceptional experience.
Wow, look at that, guys.
No
Cutscenes
longer
where
was
characters
Warframe
move.
just a free-to-play game. It was just a great game that happened
cool,
to be
right?
free-to-play. Digital Extremes continued to push boundaries with subsequent updates, including the new War, Whispers in the Walls, and the upcoming major update, Warframe 1999. These expansions demonstrate a level of writing, character development, and cinematic quality that's typically associated with AAA blockbuster titles and reflect nothing of what we've seen in typical free-to-play games. The studio's ambition to deliver high-end content remained evident with every release, further increasing the game's reputation among players both new and old. That's what's made the Warframe that we have today. One of the systems
other Rhino mains in chat? I was a Rhino main. That shit was so brainless. I fucking loved it.
The most shocked by was at one point I unlocked what I can best describe as Sea of Thieves in space. You get a railjack, a fully customizable ship that you can upgrade. It has multiple weapons that are controlled by other players in co-op. You hire NPCs to manage the ship. You fight other ships. You can board other ships, steal other ships, and raid enemy bases. While the feature didn't land well on release and it had its issues, what is available today is an absolute blast to play, and it feels like it's completely native to the game and like it could have been there from the start. In the landscape of live service and free-to-play games, many developers opt for the safe approach, focusing on incremental updates and minor changes rather than undertaking any significant overhaul. This safe strategy often results in steady, gradual improvements, but most major additions and transformative changes end up being locked behind paid expansions, premium content, and microtransactions. Typically, free-to-play games and live service games will introduce minor tweaks, seasonal updates, and limited-time offers to try to keep players engaged. But Warframe does the exact same thing.
See, I remember back when developers used to do minor tweaks on their games. Nowadays, it's these content creators that tweak minors. You know, take me back to 2012. Take me back to when gaming was good, man. Take me back when there was content creators I could trust.
They aren't strangers to making big splashes with major updates, and all the while, they're not charging the players a dime. Other games with standard offerings can sometimes refresh the experience and provide new incentives to be able to log in, but they rarely bring the wide-sweeping changes that might significantly alter the gameplay or narrative, making the game overall feel more stale. I'll give kudos to games like Fortnite, who often radically change their map, put in new modes, and give more ways for players to be able to express themselves in games, like even creating their own games within Fortnite. However, the vast majority of games don't do this, and in combination with that lack of risk, they often let go of the developers that got them to where they are in the first place, ignoring the players that got them to where they are in the first place. And as a result, they hollow out their experience, leaving them with nowhere to go. There's too much focus on monetization, and it's leading to a disparity between the expectations of the player and the financial outlook of the developer. Today, we have developers that are understaffed, underpaid, under a lot of pressure, under-delivering to their audience, while for some odd reason, the company is still expecting more money.
I completely agree. The amount of passion projects there are in gaming these days, it's a little bit toxic. I'll be real, man. The amount of developers and even just normal businesses that just say, well, if you really loved your job, you'd do this 2-hour extra overtime for free. Oh, and if you don't, I'll find somebody who will, because the job market is failing right now, and it's pretty much impossible to find work, even if you have the proper education, to where you have to give in to unrealistic expectations. This is why a lot of people have quiet quit their jobs by refusing to try to climb up the corporate ladder and just sit there and do what's required. They leave, and if they get fired, they get fired. I think it's totally reasonable, but yeah, it's pretty rough, man.
CEOs that are out there projecting growing profit without investing in growing content. And their expectation is because you're playing, then you must be paying, and I'm sick of it. Look, just recently I saw with Apex Legends, the big drama that cropped up around it, where basically, long story short,
Or even worse, you have these companies that are trying to develop video games, but you didn't get into the company because you're not black enough. You're not Hispanic enough. You're not Asian enough. You're not white enough, because they're trying to hit a diversity quota, and they're not hiring people based off of their skill sets. They're hiring people based on the color of their skin because they want to seem like they're woke and progressive. Fucking ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. Here's a crazy take, man. Let's hire people who are good at their job. What a crazy thought.
Goes in and makes it where you can no longer earn the next battle pass by completing the last battle pass, where previously you were able to. And they made these changes.
That's DEI. I'm going to keep it a buck, man. I have no idea what the fuck DEI is. Maybe I should look into it.
Gaslighting the players, saying that it's because we're trying to deliver you guys a more valuable experience.
Listen, guys, why the fuck do you think Nick's a part of OTK? Because we needed the black member. 2 years later, we realized the guy's barely even black. Okay, so we're going to need somebody to hit the quota. We already got the Asian women. We need something to seem more hip with the kids.
We're doing it because we're trying to grow the game. And
we tried Bruce. We tried Bruce, and we all remember how that happened. We all remember, man. We all remember.
We're giving you guys more value. That's really what it is. When anybody with any base level of intelligence can see how insulting it is to say something like that when it's so transparently not that. And they're not the only developer doing things like that. You see it across the board. So many developers that are making minor changes to their game, but all of their focus is on their monetization. How else they can shift and move things around to make it where they can make more money and you get less out of playing the game. And in that, the only thing that you're serving to do is make an audience that isn't loyal to you, that is just waiting, frothing at the mouth at the chance to be able to jump onto the next game and get as far away from you as they possibly can. Sure, they're playing your game right now. Sure, it's popular right now, but that's because they don't really have another option and there's nothing else right now that's that hot. So once there is something that hot that comes out, you're done. That's it. Players are a valuable resource, and you need to value them. They provide you with everything that you need to be successful, both creatively and financially.
True.
And if you use them the appropriate way, you can be huge, you can be massive. And while that's not the truth for every single game, because every single game is different, they have a different audience, they have a different...
No, I do agree that, like, making sure your community is well taken care of is great. However, sometimes over-pandering to community can really lead down to a slippery slope because sometimes you just get unlucky, right? Sometimes your community is retarded. I'm sorry to say that, guys. There are some communities that just ask for horrible things for their fucking games, and if the community listens to them, their game is dead in the fucking dirt. I mean, just look at how many content creators there are that have let their community run their entire content that have completely buried their fucking careers. You need to understand your community, not just do what they say mindlessly. And it will always lead you down a slippery slope. You need to work with them, not work for them. And I think that can be achieved. 100% think that can be achieved. Now, it's a lot slower because if you do become a mindless puppet, you will get short-term growth, but long-term, not so good.
Use case, not everybody plays the same kind of games. When you value them, they keep you afloat. They help you grow. And in the case of Digital Extremes and Warframe, I don't think that there's another developer that's out there that appreciates their audience the same way or does the same things that Digital Extremes does with their audience. Except for maybe Larian Studios. Why?
Here's a great one. Best take tier. Remove resin system from all gacha games. Co-op would benefit the game so much from this and be more fun to make the Abyss co-op as well and get to earn rewards with your friends. Remove it off of ZZ as well. Endless fun with no damn wall stop me from going on to play and grind good stuff endlessly. Like, am I right? Yeah, people who are advocating to remove the resin system. Without the resin system, the games for Genshin Impact and Honkai Star Rail actually become significantly worse. It becomes a game that you can no longer ever stop playing. The resin system is actually great because you can get meaningful content done and then take a break and not have to fucking worry about it. That's something that I actually actively advocate for because I feel like there are too many games where just you can play this game forever and ever and ever and ever. It's nice to have a moment of reprieve. I like being able to do the significant content over the course of X amount of time. And then if I want to continuously grind, then I can go even further, but it's of my own accord, not because I feel forced to.
Why did you guys have to go and create a community YouTube channel? And even more so, why am I not in it? I get it, like Duality and Co-Carnage are really cool, but like I made a lot of videos on Baldur's Gate. Come on, man. Initially, I had wondered how Warframe was able to hold on to such a consistent player base for so long. Regardless of good or bad updates, new games, or financial declines, their core audience has stayed rock solid for over a decade now, and in and of itself, that is a feat that very few games have accomplished. It wasn't until I started streaming my experience over on Twitch, playing the game for the very first time, that I was exposed to the game's community, and in that, I noticed how positive they are. An eerily similar experience I had with Final Fantasy XIV, but altogether completely different. Many players have been playing the game since alpha. They've unlocked everything in the game, effectively beaten the game, logging thousands of hours. However, they are still logging in regularly, even daily. They are out there guiding new players and doing things that they've done thousands of times because they love the game that much. And I was curious where that comes from. Well, sure, the game has regular updates, new content, new weapons, and new warfare.
Guys, if you have a career, stay away from MMOs. Final Fantasy XIV will consume and ruin your life. Be careful. If you are weak to e-girls on the internet, stay away from Final Fantasy XIV. You will find your Discord kitten in that game, and she will drain your bank account, and she will ruin your life.
Warframes, I couldn't see how Warframe could become somebody's daily driver until I saw how Digital Extremes engages with their community. Oftentimes, developers lay silent between content releases and major updates. They put their head in the sand, they let a couple people go out and respond or repost on Twitter, and only come out of hibernation to make promotional content to drive up interest around the next big update or major change. In that time of silence, I think it makes it feel like updates are further apart than they actually are. Players aren't engaged, and when they aren't engaged, they lose interest. And DE makes it really hard for you not to feel engaged as they support their community like they're content creators rather than game developers. Every single week, they go live on YouTube and Twitch to do something they call a dev short, where Steve Sinclair, the CEO of Digital Extremes, together with Rebecca Ford, the once community manager and now creative director of Warframe, just talk to the players for 15 minutes. They answer questions, they tell them about things that they're working on, they joke around. They do this every week. What other game studios give that kind of transparency to the players? What other game companies are that grounded to make sure that their CEO of all people is constantly in contact with the players? None. And that's not all they do. Every Wednesday and Thursday, they host Prime Time over on Twitch, and each of them have their own separate streams for English and Spanish, where the developers and community managers come out to play the game with the players. Have you ever heard of anything more absurd than that? Developers actually playing their game and playing their game with players with an audience up to 250,000 viewers, giving away skins, Twitch drops, different items, premium currencies. They tell stories. They play.
Yeah, developers actually playing their fucking game is honestly a shock. More devs should be doing this. I mean, I can't tell you how many times a game is ruined because these developers just listen to what the suits say from the higher ups, and they don't actually know how the players feel. If you want to know how the players feel, get this, guys. Be a player. When you play your own game, you will realize the flaws at the same time or earlier than the normal players. Want to know how something's bad? Want to know how something's good? Do it for yourself.
Trivia games with chat, and they show off different community art submissions. They are more involved with their community than I think any developer ever has been, and the fruits of their labor shine so brightly. It shines in how positive.
It's the same thing. There's a great analogy that chat just brought up. Hey, shout outs to you, Board Hiki. Never trust a chef that doesn't try his own food. If your chef isn't constantly tasting to make sure the seasoning isn't good, you're probably going to end up with a bland dish.
Of their community is, how engaged they are, how well the game is developed and supported, how solid the monetization is. It's why they are allowed to take the risks with the games like they have, and even with future games in development like Soulframe. The players know that they're appreciated. They know that the developer is trying to achieve something, and they can tell that they truly love what they are doing. They can clearly see that these developers love their game, and it shows. Digital Extremes recognizes what many developers have slowly started to drift away from, that players are a part of your game, and without them, your game wouldn't be what it is. And in fact, for Warframe, that's literally true. In the early days of Warframe, movement is exactly what you would have expected the game to be, just a over-the-shoulder, third-person shooter. It had sliding and running, but overall the movement was slow. Players discovered an exploit where they called it Zoran coptering, where they could essentially fly across maps, sling themselves across maps, and complete missions in a fraction of the time.
And they implemented it into the game.
Instead of standing against the players and changing something that the players were enjoying or doing, they recognized that the players were exploiting this because they were trying to avoid something that was actively ruining their experience. So Digital Extremes revamped the entire movement system for the game, reworking it from the ground up to be one of the most fluid movement systems in all of gaming. This video took a lot longer to record.
Hey, the players are having fun. Quick remove it. Y'all remember when New Roulette had a bug where you could spin the fuck around like a helicopter and obliterate everything. Hoyo tried to take that shit out. They said, no. No fun having here, until China bitched him and said, listen here, dog. Put it back in the fucking game. It's insane. Oh, no fun allowed here, buddy. We didn't want you to have fun that way. Not good enough.
Record than I thought it would. It's already dark outside. You might actually end up hearing my cat chattering with another cat that shows up outside. This little orange cat. They just kind of talk through the window. It's adorable. Over the last few years, I've noticed a conversation that's popped up between game developers and game journalists, and they're talking about how cold and unfeeling and how unsympathetic gamers are towards the plight of the industry, how some of these companies are failing, how games are failing, how companies are going out of business, how people are losing their jobs, and they are absolutely right. Because at the end of the day, we are consumers, we're buying games, and if you do not make a game that we want to play and it wasn't worth our money and we wasted it on your game and you go out of business as a result of that, that's on you. You got what you got coming to you. But it didn't used to be like that. And I think the reason why...
I think Concord failing was one of the best things to happen to gaming recently. This force woke political agenda bullshit is just cringe. It really is. Nobody gives a fuck about this. And these Twitter retards who have these megaphones on the internet really want to make you think that everybody cares about this and that you're the fucked up one for not caring. No, nobody fucking gives a fuck because we don't need to give a fuck. It's not that big of a deal. We don't need to worry about how many of this are in the game or how many of that's in the game. You know what we need to worry about? Making sure the game is fucking good. Guys, I will say it for the people in the back. We do not care. We do not fucking care. Just make the game good. Because if our only worry is, well, how many whites are in the game? How many blacks are in the game? How many Mexicans are in the game? We're kind of in the wrong fucking... We're kind of on the wrong ride now, aren't we? Here's what I care about. How many guns are in the game? Can I blow people up? Can I hit children with my car? Is it open world? If it's open world, is the world worth exploring? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's also another huge issue with gaming right now, is that open world games, a lot of worlds just do not feel worth exploring. It's a shame.
Is because back, and this is something that's just kind of evolved over time, is that many of the companies that are out there right now, some of the biggest companies that are out there right now, came from humble beginnings, no different than Larian Studios or Digital Extremes or anyone else that's out there. But when they were smaller, they felt like they were one of us because they were one of us. They were players that were making games because they wanted to make cool games for them to play and for other people to play. But
that is one of the big things that Japan and China really have above the Western audience, is that they don't really care about inclusivity at all. They don't. They're just going to make every single character sexy and fuckable. Case in point, Black Myth Wukong. I want monkey dick so bad.
As time went on and they got bigger and they made more money and they started selling out and literally selling out to other companies, what ended up happening is that conversation changed. That interaction that we used to have, that relationship that we used to have with the developers, that parasocial-like relationship that we had, started to disappear because they started talking to us through a veil of money. It was always apology letters and tweets that are just trying to manipulate the truth more than anything else. It's all gaslighting. You're not trying to help us. You're not trying to do anything for us. You're just trying to make money. And to be honest with you, it's cowardice. It's so disgusting.
True.
Like, if you just want to make money, go make money, dog. Say you're doing it for it. I'd almost have more respect for a company that just laid their nuts out on the table and said, we're doing it because we want your money. Rather than trying to paint it in these colorful words to try to make it feel like they're our friends and really this is all just for you guys. That's not what it is.
Yeah, but then they're going to be labeled as bad people. It's like when I did my subathon. Guys, I said this so many times. Guys, I'm doing a subathon because I need fucking money. And that's the God's honest truth. Okay? If I'm donating money to charity, it's because I want a fucking tax write-off. You think I give a fuck? Hell no. The majority of charities are fucking scams. We all know it, okay? I'm not doing this because I'm a good person. I'm doing it because my financial advisor recommended me to do so. Now, that being said, I was actually thinking about doing an actual charity fundraiser in the future for our troops. However, this is giving you a case in point for the majority of content creators who are just donating so much money to charity. Okay, it's cool, but it's a fucking write-off, bro. Who cares?
I think there's a lot to learn from a company like Digital Extremes, especially in the way that they stay connected with their audience. That level of connection brings in insane levels of endearment where the people that are playing the game just genuinely love the work that the people are doing because they like the people too. They like both things at the exact same time, and that's an awesome thing to have. My cat is freaking out right now.
I saw.
That's an awesome thing to have because players at the end of the day do want to be appreciated. We want to be heard. And the more we're heard and the more we're appreciated and the more that the game is actually worth our time and money, the more likely we are to continue to invest in that game and invest in future things that you do. However, the vast majority of the industry is really doing nothing other than creating unloyal fan bases. Sure, your game might be doing okay now, but the minute that somebody else comes by, like Digital Extremes or something like that, that does the same things that they do, or better, your audience is gone.
True.
I think there's a lot to learn from this. I really do. This
is what I say about content creators all the time. Just take a content creator you think you can do their job better than them, and then just go do it. Bada bing, bada boom. You're good. You have a career. Find somebody who you think you can be a better version of, someone who you think is slacking, and just do it better than them. Dude, be me, but instead of only streaming 4 hours, stream 5. Bada bing, bada boom. You have a career.
The whole reason I make these wake-up call videos in the first place is because I think there is a lot to learn from some of the best studios that are on the market, some of the best games that are on the market. And there's a ton of them. There is. And I plan on doing a ton of these videos because they're a lighthouse, an opportunity for those who have drifted too far away to finally see the light, come back to land, touch grass, and find out what players like, what players really want, and how to talk to players again. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you guys for watching it this long. If you guys enjoyed the video, make sure you guys subscribe to the channel.
It was a great fucking video, man. Really, 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 really fucking good. It's nice seeing more people call out the bullshit in the gaming industry. It's a shame where we're at the point where we're at, but I mean, every now I feel like that one meme where it's like that really thirsty guy and he gets like a drop of water. It's like every now and then we get a Black Myth Wukong, but more than likely we get like a Genshin Impact 5.1 in every single game that comes out. It's a fucking shame. But I mean, I have hope for gaming. But then again, I'm also at an age where, I hate to say this, I'm at an age where I kind of also just don't care. If gaming comes back, great. It's probably going to take an MMO, to be real. It's probably going to take the right MMO to revive gaming. Because I don't see any infinitely replayable games that are worth a damn coming out anytime soon. My opinion. Don't mean to be a doomer.